Today we're going to be making this macrame black cat coaster. These coasters are perfect to go with your black bean potion. So pour yourself a cup of black bean potion and let's get started. Hi friends, let's quickly go over the materials. You're going to need some braided cotton cord. You're also going to need some black butcher's twine, and I'll leave a link in the description box for all the materials I've used today. And you're going to need a tapestry needle and white butcher's twine. Oh good, it looks like my potion is finally done. To start our coaster, you want to take your black butcher's twine and thread it through your tapestry needle. And I'm using a very long strand of butcher's twine. Next, you want to grab your braided cord and grab the end of your black butcher's twine that doesn't have the tapestry needle. And we're going to start wrapping it around our braided cord. And to make sure it's secure on there, you also want to wrap around the end of your black butcher's twine as well. You also want to leave yourself about an inch on your braided cord at the top because we're going to fold it over and wrap around that piece as well. Okay, so continue wrapping until you're able to fold it over onto itself. Alright, so once you're able to fold it over onto itself, leaving a small little hole in the center, you want to start wrapping around both ends together. And try to make sure that there's no gaps. But if you do have a few gaps, don't worry about it. It will all work out in the end anyways. Once you feel like both ends are secured together, you can go ahead and start wrapping around the one cord again. Once you've wrapped a little ways, you can fold it over, and then what we're going to do is we're going to trim off the excess cord right here. And be sure to trim it very close and flush to the center. Then we're going to continue wrapping until you're able to fold it back over onto itself, forming an S shape. Now you want to grab the other end of your black butcher's twine that has the tapestry needle and thread it right up through that center loop you created. Make sure you pull it really taut. You don't want a gap in this section here. You only want the gap in that center circle right at the start. So once you've pulled your stitch really taut, you want to continue wrapping around your cord again. And it doesn't matter how many times you wrap it. I like to give about 1 centimeter of wrap before I start doing another stitch. So right about here is where I'm going to add another stitch. So grab your tapestry needle and thread it right up through that center loop. And then pull all your cord right through it. Make sure it's really taut. And we're going to start wrapping again, making sure your stitch is really taut. Now, this is the hardest part of this entire macrame coaster tutorial. Once you get past this part, it is really simple. It's just the same thing over and over again. We're just wrapping it around and stitching. I do have a few little pointers as we go along to make sure that your black cat macrame coaster is successful. So let's keep going, putting our stitches right in the very center until we've gone all the way around. Alright, so now that we've gone all the way around, we're going to start doing our stitches in the row that's right below where we're working. And I also like to try to stagger my stitches. I just feel like it is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So my wraps aren't always exactly a centimeter, it's just wherever I can come up between each stitch. Now there's gonna come a time where you run out of length. So when that happens, you want to end off with a stitch and a couple of wraps. Then what you want to do is you want to take your tapestry needle and thread it up through a few of those wraps. I like to do a good portion to make sure that it's secure. And then just pull your tapestry needle through and then cinch up the slack and make sure it's really tight. Now it's very handy to have small little scissors because that way you can trim it very close to your work. Next, you want to grab another strand of butcher's twine and thread that through your tapestry needle, making sure that it is a very long strand of butcher's twine. Find the other end, and what we're going to do is we're going to attach it just like we did at the very start. So give your butcher's twine a little bit of a tail and then start wrapping just the same as you were before. Once you've wrapped a little ways, you want to go ahead and make your stitch going up through the bottom. Alright, so keep wrapping around and around until you get to the point where you want to start adding the ears. Alright, so you should have carried on for quite a ways, and I like to have about 5 rows all the way around. And that's where I like to start on the ears. So before you start making your ears, you want to make sure that you have quite a long length of butcher's twine. You don't really want to run out at this point. I mean, you can, and it's not a big deal because you can just attach a new piece, but you'll probably end up muttering a few curse words, and I'd rather you mutter some positive enchantments. Okay, so make sure you have a long length of butcher's twine. And what we're going to do is wrap several times without making any stitches. It should end up looking something like this before we make our next stitch. So on that note, once you're happy with the size of the ear, you can go ahead and make your stitch. And if you need to, you can go ahead and add 2 stitches here because you want to make sure it's very snug close up to your previous row. But once it's secure on there, you can go ahead and do the space between his 2 ears and wrap just as normal as we were before. I like having 3 stitches before I start making the second ear. Okay, so do the second ear the same way we did the first. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go all the way around and we're gonna go back over the ears as well. When you get to your final row, which is the second row around the ears, you want to start your stitch right at the very start of his ear, and I like to kind of space my stitches out. So before you start stitching around his ear, it's a good idea to kind of map out where you want your stitches to go. And I know it may be silly, but I like one of the stitches right at the very top point of his ear. For some reason, I feel like that makes a difference. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue around his ears, and I will show you what to do once we get to his tail. Alright, now we made it right to the very end, right at his tail. His tail is going to kind of curve around in an S shape, And similarly to his ears, you want to make sure you have a really long strand of butcher's twine. That way you don't run out. As you can see by that little strand there, I did just attach a new piece. Okay, so continue wrapping around without adding any stitches for quite a ways. Once you get to the point where you're happy where it curves around, what we're going to do is we're going to tack it down with a stitch. So this time I'm going to go down through the top of my coaster. And then once I pull that really secure and taut, I'm going to go right back up through the bottom of the coaster. I suppose it really doesn't matter which way you go, just as long as that's tacked down really tight. So we're going to continue wrapping around our cord without making any stitches, and we're going to wrap another ways so that it can loop back onto itself. Okay, so at this point I am comfortable with it looping back around. So to do that, you want to go ahead and do a stitch right in between that first loop. Keep pulling it really taut, and now what you want to do is you want to wrap it around both the empty strand of cord and the base of your tail, wrapping them both together really tight. Once you're confident that that is on there, you want to cut your cord at an angle. Then continue wrapping over the end so that you don't see that white cord. Okay, once you've gotten that on there, I like to tack it down one more time just to bring my cord up through the back. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run our tapestry needle through several of the stitches in the back. Pull that taut and then snip off the end. But we're not done, we're going to add some whiskers. Grab a long strand of your white butcher's twine and thread that through your tapestry needle. Grab your cute macrame coaster, and what you want to do is send that tapestry needle right up through the very center, but don't pull it all the way through. You want to make sure you have quite a long tail at the back. Next, you want to go ahead and make your first whisker. So I'm going to thread it right through 3 of my rounds and angle it kind of towards his ear a little bit. Then you want to thread it right back up through the center again. And then for the second whisker, I'm going to make this one a little bit longer. So I'm going to put it right through the 4th round. And don't pull too taut because you don't want your tail end in the back to slip out. Okay, so keep coming up through the center and making the rest of your whiskers. When you're done your final whisker, you want to flip it over to the back. And to secure the ends, what I like to do is just tie a double overhand knot and make sure it's really tight. You can add a little bit of glue to the back, but I don't bother. I find that this is just fine. Snip off your loose ends, and that is how you create a macrame black cat coaster. Now, if you enjoyed this macrame black cat coaster, I think you'll also like the video that's on the screen now. Click the link on the screen and I'll see you over there. Bye.